Welcome back to another episode of the Break the Lab podcast. This one is called the No-Fluff Guide to Understanding Your Why and Your Purpose. I'm going to talk about why it's called the No-Fluff Guide pretty soon here. But just want to call out that this is episode number 30. We're trucking along. We're hitting the big 3-0. Pats on the back for us. Anyway, so this is going to be an important episode for you if you are feeling like, this subject of your why and your purpose. You hear it talked about all the time, right? Simon Sinek, start with why. Sure, there's plenty of other people talking about it, writing books about it, but we hear it, we're kind of inundated with this, like, you have to find your why, you have to find your purpose so much in this, self-improvement entrepreneurial space. But what does that really even mean? And how do you really do it? This is going to be an important episode for you if you feel like maybe you have the success, you have the corporate success, you have the business success, whatever, but you're still feeling like you're kind of at a crossroads in life. Like you're yearning for something different. You're yearning to discover a different path, a different part of yourself, but you're not sure where to start. And if that is you, then you, even though you may have that material success, you probably on a deeper level value things that are more like experiences and personal development more than you actually value those material possessions that you might have.
Now you've gotten to the point where you realize that having the car and the corner office and the title hasn't brought you the fulfillment or happiness or joy that you thought it would. And you're ready to discover what is the thing that's missing.
Yeah. And so if you're ready to stop being disconnected from your purpose and start living the life and the finding the meaning and living out that meaning that you were meant for, then let's get into it. First of all, this episode, I was actually listening to a podcast episode from a different person talking about purpose stuff. And I thought to myself, this is just fluff. It's fluff and I can't do anything with this information. I swear, all of the information out there, well, not all of it, of course, but so much of it out there is just fluff because it's actually it can be kind of a difficult thing to help someone with because it's so esoteric. It's such an esoteric subject. Your why, your purpose. And what do those even mean, really? I remember when I think this was in 2018 or 2019, I was very early on, I think it was 2019 actually, starting out my entrepreneurial journey. I was feeling a little bit disconnected from purpose. I was getting clients and stuff in my marketing agency, but a deeper part of me knew that this was not my purpose. This is just something I was doing to make money and find that sense of autonomy over my wealth creation after having just come from working a 9-to-5, So trying to get that financial independence and ultimately in a way that wasn't fulfilling to me, even though, yes, having some time freedom and being my own boss, quote unquote, clients are your boss, by the way, was nice and freed up a lot of my time, didn't really light up my heart. And so I had just gotten this course. And so in this course, there's this thing called the 7 levels deep exercise. And that's where it's for people who are trying to figure out what their why is, their purpose. Specifically, the language that's used in the course is figuring out your why. And when you ask somebody what their why is, they might say something like, it's to, my why is to start a business and make more money so I can be independent. And the way this exercise works is, and we do this with the people that we coach too and work with, is, okay, that's awesome. Why is that important to you? Start your business and make more money, financial independence, for what purpose? For what reason? And so there's a reason behind that. There's a deeper reason behind the money and the freedom and, the independence. And so they'll give you that reason. And then from there, that's one level deep. Next level, why is that important to you? They give you an answer. Why is that important to you? And this goes 7 levels of this. And so I remember when I was listening to the way this story was being told, when the person in the course was explaining this concept, he uses his own story in which he ends up at his 7 levels deep was leaving him in tears because he learned that his deepest why is to provide for his family and take care of his kids. And it's like, cool, that's great. What are you going to do with that? What's that going to do for you knowing that? Didn't you already know that, by the way? Like, how did you not know that? Okay, cool. So you found out that your highest value in life is time freedom. What does that tell you about what you're here for? What your purpose is? I remember when I did this exercise doing the course, I got to that 7 levels deep, and it was hard to get there, by the way. It's really difficult to get to the last 6 and 7 level. because it starts getting really esoteric. But what mine was I want to be closer to God. I want to be close to God. That's my why, my deepest why. And I was kind of like, okay, cool. Wow. So deep and profound. Like I'm still stuck. I still don't know what is that? What am I supposed to do with that? Be a pastor? There's a bunch of different ways that people say you can get close to God. Some say there was a song, Nirvana or something, or Audioslave. One of those bands wrote a song about how the act of intimacy makes me closer to God. So what am I supposed to do with that? And so at the end of the day, I still felt stuck and kind of realizing that this is just a fluff exercise. Maybe it feels deep in the moment, especially when you've paid $6,000 to go to the seminar for this guy, where you're specific, like that's the point of the seminar, is for you to feel things. But it doesn't really give you anything other than just momentary feelings, does it? And so, this kind of inspired me for this episode, because I always felt let down by exercises like that. I always felt like I'm great, cool. So what? I kind of already knew the thing anyway. So what am I supposed to do with that? So in this episode, we want to give you what am I supposed to do with that? We're going to help you find out, the more applicable and practical stuff behind this, instead of leaving you with some fluff, vague concept here. So I think first we should start discussing something that's kind of implicit in the title. There's a why and purpose. Obviously, it's not the same word. They're two different things. And I was asking Michelle what she thought about this. How do we define and discern between the why and the purpose? I had my own sense of this going into it, but she said pretty much the same thing I would have said in a way that I really like. So would you like to have the floor, Michelle?
Sure. So yeah, it was kind of like a pop quiz. He's like, hey, what do you think about these words? What do they mean? Are they the same thing? And I was like, no, of course not.
Sometimes in advance, we know what the episode is going to be in weeks in advance. And in this one, I just kind of sprang it on her.
Which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Some of our best episodes have come on from that, actually.
Yeah. Spur of the moment, divine inspiration. And so I said, yeah, like that's super easy. Your purpose is that sense of who you are being, which leads to what you do in the world. Your why is just the motivation. It's the reason why you do it. They're both important, right? They both serve a purpose. No pun intended. Sorry.
Nice.
My sense of humor. They both have a different reason for why they coexist. The purpose. I can't stop making puns. I can't do it.
Bring it. Go. Do another pun. I'm keeping this. Roll with it. Let's have it.
So the why is what's going to motivate you during those times that you may start to have more difficulties arise on the path that you are on in alignment of your purpose. And that's how they coexist. But if you know your purpose, but you don't have motivation, you may experience some difficulties. And if you have your why, you know what what motivates you, but you don't have a purpose, and you're like, well, I have all this energy and I want to do stuff, but I don't know what. So they really do go hand in hand. And to Joshua's point, I'm really glad that he pointed that out. There's a difference, in a lot of, people do categorize them or use those words interchangeably, and they're not really the same thing.
Yeah. And so it's an important distinction to make, that between your why and your purpose, because a lot of the times with those kind of like fluffier exercises I was talking about, maybe you have the expectation that you're going to get specific on something. And when those, it's not that having that sense of that deep why, that sort of chunking up, if you will, reason isn't important, but it's like when you're paying money for something, you want results. At least for me, more than I want feelings, I want results. Mm-hmm. And great, I know the why, but what am I supposed to do with that? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just me. I'm very much more of that in that practical realm where I want the purpose. And so that's why That's why. That's the purpose behind why we wanted to discern between those things.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you though. Like I also, sometimes I see things out there and it's like, here's a list of all the things you need to do, and then I read them and I feel
Yeah.
like, okay, but this doesn't really go as deep as I want it to. And so I hope that our listeners can feel that when we do these episodes, we always try to go deeper than what you may get in a, hey, here's 5 things that you can use to, supercharge your day today. Like we want you to really understand these concepts at the level that they can actually help you to start to reframe yourself and change. And I think that's a lot of people. And, Joshua and I are very results based in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so
it's the curse of the Capricorn, I think. And I don't know if it's a Leo thing, but definitely more results oriented. So let's talk about the why first off, because as we said, there are different things. Your why, if you're looking for your why, first of all, I don't think I need to tell you again that, asking yourself why isn't necessarily going to get you the best answer here. Especially if you're in the same place mentally, your why is sitting deep inside in your heart and in your intuition, at the center, at your core. And the problem is, if you're not in touch with your why already, which is obviously if you're asking this question or listening to this episode, you're probably not, or you're at least more curious about it. It is so much more difficult to connect to that place inside of you where the why is living when you are waking up to the same routine and doing the same thing in the same place, in the same order at the same time, and seeing the same faces and listening to the same music and the same playlists as you do every single day, day in, day out. Doing all that stuff, living the same life every single day is going to make it so much more difficult for you to get in touch with a new part of yourself, with a part of you that's been suppressed and ignored, not necessarily intentionally either. Like just kind of shut down because you need to survive. You need to indulge in those base level Maslow's hierarchy of needs stuff, the shelter, food, security, whatever. And you push out that stuff because that is not going to help you survive. That understanding your why isn't going to help you pay your next month's rent. Well, it might, but if we're talking direct results here, you're probably going to go drive Uber before you're going to sit in Sedona for a month, trying to figure out your purpose. So the first piece of advice that I would like to give is that you get into a new environment, shift something in your immediate environment, in your mindset, in your behaviors. Just do whatever it takes to stop living the same life over and over and over again every single day, because I think, was it Einstein said that if you can't solve the problem from the same level of thinking you created it, the problem is you don't know your why. And you're not getting into a different state of being, state of mind to figure out the answer to that problem, to get in touch with that part of you that knows the answer already and always has. And that's why people go back. It's so popular to go backpacking in Europe, especially people in their early 20s, right? It's like they're going to go find themselves. What they're really searching for is their why. And ultimately, not everyone finds it, even if they get into a new environment. And part of that problem with that is that when they go, they have this immense pressure on themselves. They are there to find their, sense of self, to find themselves, versus just kind of living in flow and letting the answers come to them. And so that's the next piece of advice I would give. The more that you make this a necessity, like the more that this is like, you need to figure out your why, the more that you are so attached to that outcome, as with anything, the harder it is for you to get it. It's going to be so much more difficult for you to get the thing, to find your why, to get the meaning when you need it. They talk about this in the Kabbalion. They talk about this in probably the Bible, if I remember correctly. Everywhere you can hear about this. The more, even in like dating people or attracting wealth, manifestation, the more you need something, the more needy energy you have behind the intention to get something, that thing is going to elude you for all your days.
Attachment. When you're too attached to something, you repel it.
Yeah. And so remove the drama around this. Stop making it such a serious endeavor. Just go, into that new space and just let the answers come to you. And it doesn't need to be, your why doesn't need to be some profound thing. And you don't need to be in competition with anyone about this either. Your why is your why.
Yeah, and it's okay to have more than just one why. Actually, something that I learned from a mentor is that when you're thinking about your why, sometimes it's easier if you just have one why that's your altruistic why. That way you get to have that higher self, higher part of you expressed because you know that that's what you ultimately do want and desire. And then you have your selfish why, which is the one that's like, I just want my time freedom. I want to have, because your selfish why is motivating you just as much, if not more, than the super altruistic why. It doesn't just
Probably
have to
more.
be one. Yeah, probably more for most people, depending on where you're at, right? Like if you
Yeah, yeah,
already
yeah.
have certain things, then that may no longer be enough, right? Maybe you are, but like you just have to, it's like you have to meet yourself where you're at. And that's why I love what you just said, Joshua, about don't be comparing yourself to other people's whys. Like if you compare yourself to Richard Branson's why, and he's got everything, all the resources at his disposal because of where he's at. Like that just doesn't really help you to compare yourself to that when you're just trying to get to a point where maybe your biggest why is like, I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck anymore. I think it's like 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 80%. It's insane.
Hmm.
So you look next to you, most of the people who are living this way. That's okay. If that is your why, if that's what's motivating you right now, that's okay. Be realistic about it because that's going to give you more motivation than ending world hunger or, depending on who you are and what that altruistic one is. Like one of those is just going to light you up so much more. It's common sense. We know this intrinsically. We're like, be okay with owning that. Own your why. And you can own more than one of them. Your why can change depending on what stage of life you're in. Maybe your why used to be taking care of your family and no longer living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Oh, but maybe you've gotten to the point now where that's not really so much of an issue for more. Maybe you have all the resources that you need, and your why is to figure out what's missing because why do you still feel so out of alignment? How is it that I have all of the things, my family's taken care of, everyone eats, I have the time freedom I always said I wanted, and yet I'm still not happy? That could be your why. Or maybe you've created this amazing business and it's growing and you've got employees and they're being taken care of, but you don't have time freedom. All you do is work. Maybe that's your why. So again, it's going to depend on where you're at. You're either, in the group that's just struggling and to survive, or you're in the group that has already gotten some of those things figured out. And you realize that just like everyone said, it's not all about money. Money actually doesn't buy happiness and there is something missing. So, you listener can do an internal check here and figure out like, well, which one of those am I in? Like, depending on what your circumstances are and what your resources are, that will also be able to give you a clue into what your why is and what could be an altruistic why versus an actual why of what really motivates you, not just the thing that looks good and makes you feel good because you said that it's important to you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm having a realization after hearing you say all that. It's that it makes sense. And this brings up it's going to lead into something else I want to talk about, but it makes sense that a person would have an altruistic and a more selfish, quote unquote, why, reasoning behind the things. Because, first and foremost, for many people, certainly probably for most people, the thing they're going to be taking care of first, their why is probably going to be more selfish focus. I got to take care of myself first. Got to provide for my family first. Mm-hmm. And so it would make sense if your why changed, or even if you had multiple at the same time. But ultimately, if one is more important than the other, totally fine. Totally okay if your why is more selfish. You're more prevailing and predominant one, or if it's more self-oriented anyway. I don't want to call it selfish necessarily. That brings up a good point, and it's that it's okay for your why to change. It's okay for your why to evolve. There can be an evolution of why. There can be an evolution of purpose. Mine certainly has changed over time, and not even having to do with like my financial or any kind of other like, it's not like I had to provide for a family to get to a change first where my why or my purpose shifted. And actually, I would have to say that I think my why is probably still the same, more or less, but my purpose, the way in which I act that why out, is what experienced the shift. And that's totally okay.
One of the first things, again, that Joshua asked me was like, hey, what would you say to somebody who says they don't know what their purpose is in life? And I just looked at him and I said, well, the first thing I would say is, what makes you think that you can only have one purpose in this life? And I think that's something else, I think it can make more sense sometimes with the why. Like logically to us, our reasons for why we do something, I think we're used to feeling that way as humans, that, hey, the reasons for why I did that might change over time. And maybe just a little bit more of a difficult concept to wrap your mind around, to think that you could also have more than one purpose. Like, why can't you have more than one purpose? Why can't you have different phases or eras of your life where your purpose is fulfilled and then you move on to the next? What if those are all related? What if they're not related? Who said that you can only have one thing in this life that you're meant to do and be and have? Isn't that just a way of limiting yourself? And it's also okay if you do have one purpose and you know what it is and that doesn't change. I guess this reminds me a lot of, I just reminded myself of a book that I read, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast in previous episodes, called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist.
You told me about that. I don't know if maybe we have talked about it on the podcast.
We may have. And what really appealed to me about her story is that she started on her journey with her heart knowing what her purpose was and what she was meant to do. And as soon as she started doing the actual thing, and she started learning more about herself, about others, about the situation, about how people were living in poverty and, how hunger was impacting them, she set out with this one idea, and that completely transformed. And she talked about how she allowed that to happen. She allowed that transformation to happen because she realized that what she understood was she didn't have all the information yet. And it wasn't until she started doing it that she could finally have access to that information. And she had this choice to make. And I remember pretty clearly in the book, she said, what kind of person do I need to be? Who do I need to become in order to make that purpose, that mission come true? And that's what purpose is about. When we talk about the why, we talked about motivation, the reason why we do something. And purpose is really more about, who do I need to become? It's more of a sense of an identity shift. Like, who do I want to be, or who do I need to become in order to leave this planet and feel like, dang, that was an amazing freaking life. Because it's not going to be in all of the things that you do. It's not going to be in all of the things you achieve or accomplish. If that were true, then you wouldn't feel the way you do if you are one of those persons that have already accomplished and have the cars and have the titles and have all of the things. Obviously, it has much less to do with that than who you actually decide that you want to be. And then when you let that inform your life, if you can narrow down who you want to be and then let everything else, what you do, and then ultimately what you end up having and accomplishing flow from that, that's when you experience true alignment.
Love it. Two things that really stood out to me about what you just said. First off, she didn't have all the information.
Mhm.
And she only got the extra information that she needed once she started taking some sort of action, once she started down a certain path.
Mhm.
So the lesson here, I think, for me anyway, is don't be so afraid to start something and think that you have to be married to that idea. Many times you might find the actual path down the path that you start, like, the real path behind the path. Because when you're, like, kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, when you're sitting in your room every single day doing the same stuff, you don't have all the information. Get into a new environment, change your behavior, change your habit, shift something in your life, do something new, and that you'll enter a whole new world of possibility there, where yes, that new information exists. Number two, you kept saying this hit me before that one, actually, because you said the word allow, and then you kept saying the word let it, let it happen, let it come. It goes back to what I was saying before too. It's not going to come if you force it. If you try and just force it to happen, if you need the thing, just let go. Let go of the attachment to the outcome. Allow the knowledge to awaken, to arise from within you.
Allow yourself to change too.
Yes.
Allow yourself to, because I think that's what really stood out to me about her story, is that she was like, I know this is my purpose and I'm going to do this and I'm going to end world hunger.
Yeah.
And she allowed herself to realize that, oh, actually what I want now is something different. I think that's where some of us get hung up.
Yeah.
I know I did for a really long time. I thought that I have to figure out what my purpose is, and then I have to stick with that for the rest of my life.
Because
yeah,
what would it mean if it was wrong?
Exactly. What if I was wrong about my purpose? And like, well, no wonder we have a hard time figuring out our purpose when we're younger, because we think we have to get it right on the first try and then that we can never change it.
Yeah.
And then like, what if we don't get it right? And which is like counterintuitive and against the point, because your purpose is supposed to make you feel happy and aligned. Yeah. And so I think that's what it is, right? It's allowing yourself the grace of, again, why can you not have more than one purpose? Why can't that shift and change along with you as you're evolving as a human being?
Yeah, thank you. So let's say that I came to you and I was like, I don't know what my purpose is in life. I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to start. What would you tell me?
Yeah, it's going to start with the most obvious place, which is you have to get to know yourself first. Like, this is very straightforward. I'm sure everyone expected that. Like, if you want to know what your purpose is, you have to know a little bit more about you and what you value. So it would actually ask you to go back and talk and think about, what are your values, your life values? What are the things that are important to you in your life?
And if you heard that and you were like, I feel like we just talked about this in a different episode. Yeah, that's too simple. That obviously, duh, common sense answer. Thank you very much. Give me something actually useful. When was the last time that you actually sat down and wrote out what your values are? Do you know what your values are? Can you name them off the top of your head? How many do you actually have? Have you figured that out yet? Have you sorted them by their importance? Like, which one's more important? What's the hierarchy there?
And again, we're not talking about going to a list of values and picking out the ones that sound nice to you. We're talking about like actually sitting down and saying, what do I value? Like, is it family and then career, or is it career and then family?
Yeah.
Is it spirituality and then career, or is it career and then spirituality? Like, really putting it into order. Like, what are the things in life that you value the most? And again, I'm not talking about what do you value in your career or what do you value in your family life. Like, in your overall life, what are the things that you value the most? So, some exercises that you could do to help you figure this out, if you're having a harder time with this, is go back and look at what you've done over the past 24 hours, 48 hours, a week. How have you spent your time?
Yeah, that will tell you.
Where you're spending the most of your time is where you are valuing, because your values are unconscious programming at the deepest level, and they're going to influence how you spend your time. So how you're spending your time will give you clues as to what you really value. So you may think, because I know I was in this place once, well, I could tell you how I'm spending my time, but I'm so miserable. I'm not actually happy. Well, there's another clue for you then. What do you actually, maybe you don't know. Maybe you're feeling like so out of touch, right? Sometimes we can feel like we're out of touch and we're like, well, I don't know what I want. Well, do you know what you don't like then? Because if you can write out what you know you don't value, then you can at least get that all out of your mind, and through process of elimination know, okay, if that's not what's valuable for me, then I'm looking for something outside of these things. It also gives you a list that you can look at. And if that's how you're actually spending your time, how you say you don't want to, that's a really big red flag for you. That is a very good indicator that this is why you're feeling out of alignment. This is why you're feeling unfulfilled. This is going to be a big reason why you're not feeling happy. Now, I don't want anyone to think that that's the only reason, because we've talked so much about different types of negative emotions, limiting beliefs that can also make us feel that way. And those limiting beliefs and negative emotions, they live inside of our values. They are housed within them because the values are the deepest drivers of our behavior.
And by the way, you have to start here. The reason, if you thinking this is like typical fluff stuff you've heard, the reason you have to start with your values is because if you don't have those figured out, then you're not going to, there's a great chance you might choose the wrong purpose. You have to know what your values are and what they're not, the stuff that you like, in order for you to know if the purpose that you've chosen is going to be in alignment with you.
That's right. It can be so much easier when you go and you know what your values are, what really matters to you, because you've heard of people who say, "Oh, my purpose in life is to be a mom." I'm like, that's a great purpose to have. If that's your true purpose and that's really all you want, and that's going to lead you to feeling the most fulfilled. We all know people like that. If you're not one of those people, this is why it makes sense to start here, doesn't it? To really get to understand what drives your behaviors, what's important to you.
Yeah.
Knowing what's important to you can also help you inform the next step. We talked about, well, your purpose is really about knowing who you want to be. And then allowing that to inform what you do and what you accomplish. Because think about it. If I were to name my purpose, I would say, I know my purpose is to help others heal, to be a healer. Like, I'm calling myself a healer. I'm calling myself a coach. I'm calling myself a facilitator. I'm calling myself a guide. And because I know that I am those things, I can now know, well, what would I need to do to become a healer, a facilitator, a guide, a master NLP practitioner? There are things that I would have to do in order to become that person. And when I do those things, in addition to other action that I need to take, then I will accomplish certain things. I will accomplish helping others change their lives. And that's what I'm doing now. I get to do that because I got clear about what was important to me, who I wanted to be, what I would need to do to become that person, and what I want to have that's also in alignment, that flows, and the actions that I would have to take in order to get those accomplishments. And it kind of like a two-way street at that point, right? Like, what I'm doing gets me what I have is just because of who I'm being. Like, but then you're just like, but then I'm doing these other things that are going to help me have, which are going to help me do more of the things. And then I become more of that me. And it all of a sudden, it's like circuitry that just is going, lightning, like turning on a light. You just show up in a certain way, and before you know it, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm being. And you hear everyone talk about this, right? You have to start with your identity. Well, you have to know.
Be, do, have paradigm.
Exactly. You have to know. Now, what if you're in this spot and you're like, but I don't know who I want to be? Okay. First of all, I would say, really? Really? You don't have any idea what kind of person you want to be? Okay. Try this. Who is someone you admire a lot? That when they come around or you see them or you hear them, you light up inside and you're like, oh, I love that person. I wish I could be like them. That is a clue of who you want to be. Now you want certain things that this person has. You want those qualities. I mean, you want the qualities, characteristics that that person has.
And by the way, I'm sorry. If this is difficult for you to hear, I would caution you that you are stuck right now. You're stuck in a loop, in a negative feedback loop where you actually probably want to be feeling this way and you want to be disconnected and you don't want to figure out who you are. And, you know, this is like, there's a level of thinking here that would allow you to take the lesson that Michelle's talking about, which I'm sorry I interrupted, but I feel like this needs to be said. Or you can be kept from it. But if you are in this headspace where you subconsciously are holding yourself back from taking the lesson, there's something that needs to be worked out subconsciously. And the way to do that is through coaching or therapy, maybe if you have a good therapist, or, you know, spending 6 months in the desert alone.
Well,
so take your pick. Yeah. Lots of vomiting. So, you know, if this is not landing for you, if you're like, this is fluff and esoteric and I don't like this, especially if you're thinking, I don't like this, listen to that.
That's the best. Anytime you have an aversion to something that's shadow.
If this is making you mad, there's something there for you to look at.
Yeah. Anytime you listen to something or see something in your life and you say, that's not me, and that can be either that's not me and I want it to be, or that's not me and I don't want it to be, that's shadow. Yeah. And we did an episode on shadow, didn't we?
I think so. But my point, like, as someone who has done this kind of work before and also experienced things where it was definitely fluff, like, I'll just ask yourself why a bunch of times. This part, I can tell you from experience, this is not fluff. And if it sounds like it is to you, look inward and reach out to us, because we can help you overcome the barriers that are holding you back from taking the lessons here.
Oh yeah, totally. Like the clients, I mean, we do deep dives with clients doing this specifically. And I can't tell you how many people are like, I am a completely different person now.
Yeah.
I am a completely different person. I am so in alignment. I am so much happier. Everything just flows for me. Yes, I'm still putting in the work, but it's so much easier. There's so much less resistance.
Yeah.
And that is what happens as a result of doing the things that we're talking about. I mean, these are things that we talk about with our clients.
Yeah.
And it absolutely works.
Our email address is hello@breakthroughloud.podcast. Sorry, I just felt it was so necessary to say that because I was feeling like I could feel the old me from like 5 years ago rising up being like, this is stupid, you know? This doesn't mean anything. But, and there, of course, probably a Capricorn side of me too wants to like the 5 steps, you know, give me the 5 steps, which we'll give you. But it's really important to get this stuff into your brain first. Be, do, have. It's so important. And I'm sorry, did you have more that you wanted to say about that? I totally cut you off.
No, I think well, it's just interesting because you accentuated that. And in my mind, I was thinking in the direction of shadow. And
you were going to go there? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like, so it actually, obviously we were on the same wavelength, because whenever you think about if you're having a hard time thinking of you and you have to go outside of yourself and you're like, oh, that person has it, but I don't, that's a part of shadow. That's a part of you that you absolutely can have. Like, you can't recognize qualities in other people unless you have them, whether those are positive qualities, what you perceive to be positive or what you perceive to be negative. You would not recognize them if you don't also possess them. And so coming to a place where you can recognize it and then want it, and then again, allow yourself to accept those pieces of you. And then in doing so, seeing the qualities that you want, that you would like to have, that other people have, that's going to inform the kind of person that you want to be. And by knowing what kind of person you want to be. You'll do this exercise if you actually truly do this, and you will have a better sense of, well, if I want to be this person, then what would I need to do? And if I do those things, then what would I naturally be able to have?
Mhm.
And when you look at all those three lined up next to each other, and you can feel a sense of, oh, I finally figured it out. Like, it doesn't, again, like Joshua said, it doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. It just has to be true for you.
Yeah.
And it'll just click. Once you start doing this, you're building a connection within yourself. And you might be surprised with some of the things that just pop into your head. You're just like, where did that come from? Or you might be surprised that you'll go somewhere, you'll take a trip somewhere, and you'll just run into a random person or see the random thing that's all of a sudden it sparks your imagination, and you have this like moment of, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what it is. But it starts with starting to put in the work, because remember, there's 4 things you need to do to create lasting change. We've talked a lot about baggage. We're talking really right now about getting clear in your vision. And that's step 2, doing your vision. But like, in order to get clear in your vision, you have to take action. Like, you have to do the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But once you're putting energy into it, you're taking action, then things do start to come into your life and flow into your life. And the 4th step is to stay focused on the positive things, which is why we're talking about who you want to be. And, earlier did mention, hey, you can write out the things that you're not, just to kind of get them out of your head. And so that you have a very clear indication of like where not to look, right? And also clear indication of, if this is what's happening in your life, where you're spending most of your time, then there's something that needs to change. And if you write those down on paper, I highly recommend you like burn that afterwards to give, again, because you're giving your unconscious mind the visual of like, this isn't who I want to be anymore. I want this to change.
Mm-hmm.
And we think in pictures.
Yeah. For anyone else who has a weird brain and got a little bit confused by what she was saying, the step 4, all the steps she was talking about, was from the very first episode that we did, called the 4 prerequisites for change. Those are not the steps that we're going through in this particular episode about finding your why and purpose. Just in case anyone else got confused there.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. So, and again,
episode 1.
Like she was saying, you do need to take action. And like she had shared about that story about, what was her name? The soul money girl?
Lynn Twist.
Lynn Twist did. She took action. She had to get down a certain path to find the true path. There's a story in The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss where he talks about someone he's telling a story about. I don't remember. They were like a super successful corporate executive, and they were lost in life. They were just like, I don't know what the point of all this is. Mm-hmm. Took a random vacation to like Hawaii or something, some island, and they just randomly happened to come upon like a surfer or someone doing like surf tours or something like that. I could totally be getting the details of this totally wrong, but it's more or less going to be the story. And so they like had some kind of epiphany while they were doing the surf tour. And then they're basically like, forget all the rest of this stuff. This is what it's all about. This is it. And so then they started doing surf tours. They became a facilitator, a provider of surf tours for other people who,
wow.
Yeah. And like they started a business where they they market or advertise to high level corporate executives who are lost, and they bring them out on these surf tours. That's his specific market because that's where he came from. And so would he have found that if he hadn't gone and done that himself? Heck no, because he wouldn't have taken it requires that you take action. And so if
he started taking action towards trying to figure out what was missing, like that was the whole point. And then he got the message.
Mm-hmm. And he was probably open.
What he liked, what he valued. Like, I like surfing. I like being out in the ocean. I like being out in nature. If you value being out in nature and you're not in nature all the time,
what are you doing?
There's a hint.
Yeah.
There's the hint. That's why it starts with values.
Yeah. And so along the lines of taking action, because I'm a very like action oriented person, I have done exercises in the past that really helped me discover like my purpose in life. And just to go briefly over what they are, because this episode is getting pretty long, get out a piece of paper and pen or pencil, whatever, and write down things like, first of all, the first thing I wrote down back in my day, how old am I? Was what are the things that I have done that made me the happiest? Because a good place to look, by the way, when you don't know where to go forward is, I think we talked about this already, look backward at what has lit you up in the past. And so I wrote down a bunch of stuff, all the stuff that I've done where I was the happiest doing them. And then from that list, these are times in your life when you've been the most happy. From that list, think about the things you were doing. Which of those things come most naturally to you? What are the things that you are just you're most in flow during, where they're just like effortless and easy. And then you can start to think about, once you know what you're kind of good at and what makes you feel good, you can think about, because once you've got that, you're not really at your purpose yet. You're just at stuff that you like to do and you're good at them. Think about what problems exist in the world, or even in just your locale, that you want to solve. And just write down a bunch of stuff. Just go at it. No idea is stupid here. Just think of everything. It could be health related. It could be financial related. It could be government related. It could be geographical related. It could be, it could be anything. It could be business related. Just write a bunch of stuff down. And so what you want to do now is start to marry the ideas here, and also begin to think about who within that these spaces could benefit most from what you do. And for you, it might be, you might not need to think about the problems you want to solve so much as you want to think about who you want to help. For some, it could be less about who you want to help and more about what problems you want to solve. But one of those things is going to give you a picture married with the idea of what you're good at and what comes easy to you, where you can start to gain a sense, and it might not be a perfect picture yet, but you can start to gain a sense for what your purpose might be. And ultimately, once you have that sense, that's all that's required. Like we were saying before, it doesn't need to be final here. It could and very well may change, but all that matters is that you start taking action, get some momentum, and get into a new space in life. Because as long as you're open to letting in the answers and letting the answers rise up from within you, and just open to anything really, then you'll start to find what you're really meant for.
Love it. That was definitely even more chunked down, which totally makes sense because
that's me.
Joshua's a more very specifics detail kind of person, and I'm definitely more of like a big picture visionary kind of person. Not to say that we don't both possess the others, but in our natural states where we tend to hang out, which is what makes this all so much fun and interesting. Mm-hmm. And so just to recap that all in a very nice, succinct way, now that we've given you all of those details, all of the what behind what we've been talking about, is first step is look at your values. Look at what it is that you like to do in your life. What do you value? We gave some examples of how you can do this, different exercises you can do, such as looking at what you have done in the past that you have liked, looking at how you've spent your past time, or just naming them off the top of your head. Then, if you want to get even more into the details, go through that exercise that Joshua just talked about, where you delve even deeper. When have you been at your happiest? And when you were at your happiest, what were the things that you were doing in that time? And what are the things that you were doing in that time that you were the best at, that you're really, really good at? And then now that you know what makes you happy and what you're really good at, start making a list of all of the things that light you up in that you want to make change, right? What are some of the solution, or what are some of the obstacles out there in the world that are meaningful to you that you would like to be able to influence and change and do something about? And once you write that list down, you can also think about who it is that you want to help specifically, if that's applicable, who or what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And then you can start to decide, okay, based on what it is that I realize that I'm good at and that makes me happy, and what problems are out there, here's who I can be to solve that problem. And that's where we plug in the who do I want to be. So that would be the next step, is figuring out now, who am I? Who can I identify as, that once I am that person and I start to act as such, I will accomplish and be in complete flow in my life. And another exercise for that, writing down who you want to be, is also taking a look at anyone outside of yourself that you admire, anyone that you want to have some of their qualities as well, that that's another way to look at this, is who inspires you, what about them inspires you, and how do you want to be like them. Then you know who you want to be, what you need to do, and then all the things that you can have as a result of that. So now that our purpose for why we did this episode has been fulfilled,
Hey. We're going to close it out. So thank you for listening.
And we really want to invite you that if you found value in this episode, please do remember to leave us a 5-star review. Please do remember to write us a 5-star review and share this episode with someone that you know would love to hear this message. If you're a first-time listener, we welcome you to come back and continue listening to the podcast.
Yeah, actually, we haven't gotten a review in a while. You know what? If you hated this, leave us a 1-star review. Bring it. What you got?
Anything's better than nothing, right?
Give us some sort of change. Help us get out of this stuck state. No, but really, thank you for listening. And again, if you've made it this far and you didn't get too mad at us to leave, but you did go through that moment where you were like, this is stupid, or this is too easy or too obvious. Again, pay attention to that. There's something there for you to pay attention to within you. Where's that coming from? If you're having that kind of reaction, talk to us, reach out to us, because we can help you with that. It's something that is going to need, it's not going to need it necessarily, but oh my goodness, will be so much easier to get past it and blow through it when you have someone like Michelle or I who can, coach you through that and help you work through that stuff and release the stuff that's holding you back and keeping you stuck there. Our email address is hello@breakthroughladpodcast. We both check it. So give us a hello. You know what? Give us a hello, even if you just want to say hi for no reason.
Yeah. And just know that your first call with us, we're still doing the complimentary session with us. So you don't have to pay to have a conversation with us. Just do something for yourself, show up for yourself, take the first step, take action, have a conversation about you. And again, one conversation can change so much.
Yep. All right. I propose that we end this episode here. Get it? Propose. Instead of propose. Purpose.
Oh, okay. That one went over my head.
That was a reach. But you know what? I had to end it with
another pun. Now we're getting
pun.
delirious.
Yep. We're gone.
Out of line, Joshua.
All right. We love you so much. And bye.